see.
Hello, welcome to CarCast. I'm Matt, the Motorator DeAndre, here with Bill Goldberg. CarCast brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup playoffs this season. They have every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 different slot games. Just head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus off your first deposit. It's BLEAV, Believe. Bet online. The game starts here. All right. There you go. It's kind of a sister company.
By any means, they're in the same family.
They're in the same family. They're in the same family.
That's all.
Yeah. So last week we covered a little bit about the drag racing set that you guys went out to with Kid Rock and Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and I've been seeing his posts after the fact because he was teasing it ahead of time. But then you were saying you were wheels up to do the Demolition Derby, and you didn't give it like a lot of information on the Demolition Derby other than expect carnage. But what was it? Where was it? Why did you go?
Well, yeah, all of the above. My one of my best friends, Matt Kutcher, and I have been tasked to help bring quote unquote Demolition Derby to the next level, right?
Okay.
So this is a different form of it. There's so many different iterations, right? Whether you're pulling a camper or whether you're tied to somebody or whether you're just going out and blowing guys up, right? Yeah. This is a company called Demo, appropriately named. And, you know, they literally are doing whatever they can to take it to the next level. Whether it be coaching drivers or whether it be stunts and special effects surrounding the event, you know, to try to juice it up and make it more palatable for the audience and make it better as an option for people who aren't just demo people that are following it anyway, right? So they're trying to bring it out to the masses, and they've coined the term combat motorsports.
Okay, I like it.
All I can tell you is, you know, we're posting it this week on Goldberg's Garage, just, you know, a cornucopia of our experiences throughout the week or throughout that day. We only went Friday. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Obviously, there's qualifying heats Friday and Saturday, and then it culminates Sunday, right? So the big deal about this demo derby was, number one, it was in Lima, Ohio, which I'd never heard of and or been to before, about an hour outside of Dayton. But it was an event that was so big within the demo community that the top 3 drivers in the country for the first time were going head to head at this event, right? So they brought Matt and I in. We had the time of our lives. They put me in one of the cars. I went out and did some donuts in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the track. And it was fun, man. It was a different experience. Matt and I got a lot of ideas to let the cat out of the bag, and I think they're advertising it now. These guys are so serious. They've rented out Bristol Motor Speedway for, I think it's October the 3rd through, yeah, see, there it is, right there.
Oh, here's the announcement up here. Yeah, the Bristol Motor Speedway.
Yeah, so that's how big these guys are wanting to make this. They have the top 400 demo drivers in the country coming to the Bristol. And it's going to be badass, man. Now, granted, it's rough around the edges and it does have a specific audience, but, you know, it's Matt and I's job to try to increase that audience exponentially. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. What baffled me was, if you look at these cars, you know, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, everyone looks like a piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're kind of supposed to, right?
Well, they're supposed to, but
yeah.
Fact is that the labor and the parts that go into these vehicles, the metal alone and the welding alone is such an extensive process. It's nuts. And to know that these guys have no safety whatsoever other than a helmet. There's a ratchet strap inside of the cockpit, and Matt asked me what I thought it was for. And I'm like, well, it's probably to keep the integrity of the cockpit together. No, it's not. It's their handle. Literally, these dudes are wearing cutoff shirts, jeans, and a helmet. And they're out there in the top class. The top class was running, I think, 700 horsepower motors. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these dudes get a lot of momentum. The track is not huge by any, it's designed as such, but it's crazy, man. And I went out there and drove one of those things, and it's pretty wild. It's a different form of motorsports. It's coined as, like I said, combat motorsports, and it couldn't be more appropriately named. But it was fun, man. And with Matt and I's help, hopefully it's going to go to the next level. And like I said, Goldberg's Garage on Friday, we'll post the video. But it was definitely a different experience. And for any gearhead, you can definitely appreciate what goes into these cars and the cars themselves. It was pretty wild. The first class that they had was a front wheel drive class. I think they were limited to like 200 to 300 horsepower or something. And the rear wheels, there was no rubber, right? I mean, it looked like a lawnmower tire. I mean, it was ridiculous, but you didn't need the traction in the back, right? I think you're going for weight reduction or whatever you're doing. I don't know, but it was a very interesting dynamic. They had teams. The rules are such that every 60 seconds you have to make contact. If you don't, you're out.
That's interesting. So you can't just run around and flee. You can't.
Oh no. It's combat, dude. It's head to head. You have to be blowing guys up. And then when it gets down to only 2 team members on the same team, they got to go head to head. And there are some lulls in it for sure, especially in the lower tier, less horsepower class. But when you get up to the big boys, man, just hearing those things, rev up, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And also the fact that these guys just completely try to kill each other, and the surface, the track is literally cleaned off in between races, probably within 3 minutes. So as much carnage as you would think, shit doesn't just fly off these cars. They're pretty sturdy, man. And to be able to move on after doing one of these events, throughout the weekend and go for, the final heat on Sunday, these guys do a lot of work. I'm greatly appreciative of being able to see what goes on behind the scenes.
It's like the movie Gladiator in the Colosseum, where, instead of just chariots and horses and swords and spears, like the combat is with these vehicles until there's no one standing, last man standing, basically.
100%. And it's wild because, they have limits on the height of your rear bumper, your front bumper. Obviously, strategically, they set these things up to be battering rams.
Yeah.
To either strategically take out, wheels and side quarter panels or the radiator. I mean, they go in reverse and slam the throttle in these things, and the rear bumper is quite low. So if they hit a car in front, they're completely blowing up his radiator, except for the fact that the cage that they build for these radiators and everything else is pretty unfreaking believable. I mean, if you look at the detail, it's unreal how much goes into this. And like SEMA, these dudes are wrenching until the bell rings and they have to line up. So it's pretty cool. If you're a gearhead, you have to appreciate what these guys do.
Yes, because it's interesting, it's innovative. You got to kind of do it yourself. It has sort of an appeal to it.
You have to do it yourself. It's you and your teammate or your family or whoever is in your pit crew. You have to be able to make it to the next race, depending upon your car. And so
and when I say do it yourself, I mean, like, if you had, I don't know, whoever's in your crew, 2 or 3 buddies or family members or whatever that are helping to wrench, and it's not like these guys are pulling in big sponsorship money and
no, not at all.
A crew. Like,
there are a couple guys that have some sponsors, but it's our job to open it up and to make it more palatable to the masses. So it's
it's kind of a Junkyard Wars meets, Lemons race meets, uh, and who knows what it
A
could go
lot of the
on.
above.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, look, it's interesting. I'm sure it would be a blast to see in person. If they're going to pull this off at Bristol, that was coming up at the beginning of October. The website for this is demo-motorsports, demo
They have an
motorsports.com.
existing pay-per-view program with the people who are signed up already. That's 10,000 people strong. That goes around the country and videos and live streams these events. And so, I mean, there's a huge cult following for it. It's just, can you expand it and can you make it more palatable to the masses, right?
Yeah.
To take it to the next level. So, yeah, it's it's as wild as it gets, man. It's really and to see the appreciation that my buddy Matt had for these guys and what
Yeah.
they did and what went into it, further exemplifies the fact that I mean, you got to be very skilled to do what these guys do. And I mean, to a point in certain degrees. So it was very entertaining. It was a lot of fun. And driving one of those was, it was wild, crazy.
So wait, so you drove it, but did you get into the combat portion of it? So you weren't in there smashing into things. You just needed to see the vehicles and kind of understand, like you were saying, like kind of how they put them together and the amount of craftsmanship and welding and
Well, that you want to
everything
see
put
the
in.
maneuverability of it, and I mean,
Yeah.
I ain't getting to the damn thing competing in anything, let alone getting smashed by these guys who strategically know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to take it out and see its capabilities and see, the braking on it, the acceleration on it, what those tires were doing, the ability to go in reverse and use it as a battering ram
Yeah.
back, all that kind of stuff. It's
And
just,
kind of an interesting thought, like you have brakes on it, and I guess it certainly makes sense so you don't go off the track in a sense, but you're really just trying to hit stuff. So I don't know how much braking you think you're going to use.
well,
You
it
know,
does come in handy when, you've got a strategy and you're trying to ram someone and something happens at the last second and you got to avoid, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah.
there's a lot of strategy going into it, man. It's crazy and it's pretty freaking dangerous. These guys are nuts. And they have lawnmower uh categories, right?
Okay.
I don't know how they pull that one off, but
Riding lawnmowers, do they put like a cage, like an exoskeleton around them? I don't
I
know. I haven't
I'm
seen it.
assuming something to that effect, but I'm not sure. But let's just say that there'll be stuff available for every family member throughout the weekend for these things. It's pretty crazy, man. I'd like to see the whole weekend, obviously prior to going to Bristol, and see what they do. They got monster truck rides and stuff like that, for all the kids and Bristol's gonna throw out the red carpet and it'll be like a fair out there. But it was very interesting going from the event that I did outside of Nashville with Kenny Wayne and Kid
Yeah.
and Kaniskas, a lot of people. And Hennessey was supposed to be there. But and then go into the demolition derby thing. We
Yeah.
had no idea what to expect. Like absolutely no idea. We walked right in, went to the drivers meeting, and then went straight out to see the cars, and the cars lined up and the races started. So it was a lot to take in.
And then speaking of the drag racing stuff, so you had the cars out there and you were saying last week that you had to leave the cars at Kid Rock's house so you can come home, but hopefully they're on their way back now. But you guys got some weather and stuff out there.
Yeah, they're on their way back. They're supposed to be here between 5 and 7 p.m. tonight, which is exactly when I think the heavy rain and no hail possibility, but kind of monsoonish weather. But
Yeah.
hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not like they're two drag cars or anything. But
Uh, now it's been about a week since you guys did that event. Have you got a chance to follow up with anybody? Kenny Wayne, did he? Because I think he went off to do Power Tour right away, and then I don't know what Kid Rock was doing after that, but oh, hold on a sec.
Yeah, I haven't really followed up with anybody. Everyone just freaking went their opposite ways. Um, the most important bit of information are when are my cars going to arrive. So I've got that right now. So
Yeah.
I'll download with everybody. Mario and I have gone back and forth, and yeah, we had a great time, dude. It was awesome. I learned a lot about turbo cars, and it was a great experience. And the best thing about it is it blossomed into the next event, which is going to be down in Florida with Mario, and we're going to do that within the next couple months for sure. So
Okay. Yeah. Same. You're gonna
continuation,
bring out the same crew.
100%. Well,
Yeah.
the crew, I
If they
don't
can make it.
obviously invitations will be sent out to everybody who was involved, but whether everybody's going to be able to make it, I'm not going to wait. We need to start getting those cars on the track regularly and starting to learn and have some fun and use them to the extent that they need to be used.
You think you're gonna give it a shot behind the wheel of the turbo car down the drag strip?
Eventually, yeah, it's just that one run puckered me really bad, and
Yeah.
I get it. I need to take the car on a runway, a huge parking lot, so that I can spin the tires in second gear and not worry about hitting anything, and
Yeah.
spin the
Right.
tires in third gear and not worry about hitting anything. Because until I know that, I'm not going to do it on a track. I mean, it's just call me whatever you want to call me, but I'm not going to
No,
do
I
it.
mean, look, I mean, there, there, there's no professional reason to do it and put yourself in a situation or the car or anybody else in a situation where it could potentially be, dangerous. You got a wall to the left, you got another driver to the right.
Well,
You're
yeah,
right, and a car that's that unpredictable and you have no real experience in, like it's. I mean, look, if Mario was like, "Hey, we're gonna dial this thing back. We're gonna, we're not going to make it 1300 horsepower. We're going to make it 900. And then let's see how we go. And then we'll step up, we'll turn up the boost and,
exactly. But still, it's a completely different experience
yeah,
for me. So, um, it's to Mario gave me an example, right? He has been in that car a number of times and knows the reaction you're going to get from it at certain times, and so he was able to stay in it. I can stay in a supercharged car when the wheels spin because I can feather it, and I know how it's going to react, no matter at first, second, third, or fourth gear, right? But I don't know how it's going to react when it's a turbo, and how much when I let off, it's going to actually let off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
right.
to see Mario go through, the lights, full go and have the issues that we had, but stay in it like I would stay in a supercharged car. That's just something I don't have the knowledge for yet. So
Yeah.
until I have that knowledge, I'm not gonna I'm gonna dial it down to freaking 2 pounds of boost.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you just got to ramp up to it. You got to like get used to it. And you're right. Like understand what it feels like, the throttle control, the throttle sensitivity, how that car handles, how that thing reacts to things. I mean, it's just set up to be such a drag race car. And as you were saying, the slicks, the parachute, the whole thing, like it's tough to get into anything like that for the first time and be able to go all out. I would never do it with any car that gets brought over here. Anybody that, brings any manufacturer brings a car out here. It's like, great. It's a McLaren 720S. But I'm like, but I'm not leaning into that thing because I don't want to end up being a meme of
Unless you have a runway, right?
sliding into a
It's the same principle as going to
anything.
Bondurant or going to Radford, right? It's the
Yeah.
same exact principle. It's the same thing we've been talking about for years, taking these challengers and going there and learning the threshold. And, yeah, 100%. And you have no room for error on a drag strip, right? Especially depending upon the track. I mean, how skinny those lanes are. And
Yeah.
you got peer pressure, you got everything going on. And you got Jim Wagner freaking driving the other car against Mario, right? And we had a little wager going, and I didn't know jack diddly about what, a turbo car, its characteristics, and the fact that for a flag drop, a turbo car's immediately behind, right? Immediately behind, because you can't set up and stage, right? And you don't have the light tree to spool up, and you don't have to worry about that on the supercharger, right?
Yeah.
So we were way behind the 8 ball there, and I am talking, the twin turbo is gonna smash everything. Well, not in an eighth mile, and not against a factory drag car like the 170.
Yeah.
Not unless it's dialed in perfectly, and you can, because from the start, man, you're coming out about the same RPM in both vehicles. But when that turbo is spooled up, I'm not, there's no way. I'm afraid to do a burnout in the damn thing, right? Just because I don't know, and I don't want to blow the turbo. It's just a big learning curve, man. Huge learning curve. I mean,
Yeah.
do I feel closer to getting behind the wheel of that car on the drag strip? Yes. Do I feel comfortable? No, still, even
Right. And I don't even know how comfortable you're ever going to get in a car like that, but it'll be fun as you start to get a little more, let's say, acclimated than comfortable.
yes,
And once you have an understanding of
that's all it
that
is.
car, then you'll feel better about it. And it's a cool car and it'll be super fun. So uh, uh yeah, to get another shot at that, or a couple more to get another shot at that in Florida was gonna be, it's gonna be a fun gig.
Oh yeah, especially a track that's Mario's track, and he knows it like the back of his hand, and he's taken that car there numerous times, and that's his go-to track. And we'll have much better success up there, I think.
Yeah.
For
Uh, okay, let's we were waiting for John Hennessey to join us, and hopefully he's still gonna be able to jump in here, but I haven't seen him come on yet. But you know, yesterday I went over and I visited the guys at Icon Vehicle Dynamics, not the Icon car builders, at the suspension guys. And I was familiar with the company, but I don't do much off-road stuff, and I don't have those types of vehicles. But to be able to go over to these guys and visit them and see uh, how sophisticated and how interesting these guys are. Like, first of all, I was familiar with their parts being suspension and all the exterior accessories, the bumpers and stuff like that, but I had no idea how incredible and how massive this company is. Like, they've
how
just
do you know? How do you know the scope of any company anymore in this landscape? Because
really, and to sit down with their boss, with one of their founders, and go, when did you start this company, and how long have you been at it, and how does this thing grown over the years, and get a tour of the facility and seeing how they're manufacturing parts, they're assembling all of the shocks, and machining the control arms, and how much inventory they have. It's easy to go to a website like we're looking at right now on the YouTube channel and look at a handful of parts and go, wow, again, just sort of behind the scenes, what it takes to do a company like that, and have so many people there just kind of working day in and day out, making all this happen. It was an impressive thing. It was a great story, and I'm hoping to be able to work with those guys, because they seem fantastic, and do something possibly on the Ford Lightning, the new Lightning for SEMA. Although their focus is largely off-road, they do have a very, very cool, kind of interesting suspension uh, kit for the new Lightning that does kind of lower the truck a little bit, but it's adjustable coilovers on all four corners, lowers it a bit, and then adjustability both from a mobile app, right? You can control it from your phone, and he's got gyros, 6-axis gyros, electronically controlled, that makes it active suspension as well. So on the app, you can set the sensitivity level, and then you can set the sensitivity level of the active suspension. So if I was going off-road, I can say, soften up the suspension and turn down the active component. And if I was going on road, I can go, oh, I want to stiffen the suspension and turn up the active component more, so it reacts faster and more on smaller imperfections in the road. It was really, really smart stuff to be able to look into something like that. And anyway, I was just impressed with the tour and the whole thing that they've got going over there. So hoping to work with those guys, and maybe if we do something on the truck to go over there and talk with them on camera and film it a little bit for the YouTube channel and show you guys what I was able to to see the other day, kind of a peek behind the curtain over there.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was a cool setup for sure. Okay, let's see
This
if we
part
can
of the
find
program brought to you by nerds. Fuck.
All right, so we got John Hennessey in the waiting room. I'm looking forward to talking to him. So let's do this. Let's just take a quick break and we'll be right back with John. All right, here we are now with John Hennessey. John, it's good to see you again. I think it's been a minute, maybe since Scottsdale, Barrett Jackson. We
Yeah,
probably saw each other there.
absolutely. Great to be with you guys, Bill. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, sir. Missed you this last week, man. I know we're going to get a rain check because we're going to go down to Florida, I think, at some point.
I can't wait. And by the way, I've got a drag strip out behind my factory. You guys are welcome anytime. It's a little hot in the summertime, but we'd prep it and get it nice and sticky for you and some of the other Demon guys.
That's the one right off of the 10?
Yeah, we're just west of Houston, not far from Austin. So yeah, we're right on Interstate 10.
No offense, but every single time I drive by you guys, I cuss you because I have to go to Tomball and spend 4-day weekends for my son for summer baseball for the last 4 freaking years.
Oh man. Okay. Well, you're a good dad. I mean, I'm sure they gave you a good Father's Day celebration, but yeah, I mean, baseball is a big deal in the Houston area. So I feel your pain. And, but hey man, anytime you're in our neck of the woods, give me a heads up, please. We'd love to have you come by.
I appreciate it. I can probably, I have a photographic memory of the shot, passing it, going on the way to Tomball and the way going back. So
yeah,
we'll definitely pick up the phone and call you the next time.
That'd be great.
John, it's actually a pretty good segue into where we are today. Is 30 plus years now building Hennessey and how it's grown and what you guys have done. You guys must have put your hands on 10,000 vehicles in the last 30 years.
Yeah, I think last we counted it was around 16,000 vehicles we've modified since 91. And, I mean, I'm just like Goldberg and yourself and other, the people that are listening to this. I was just a car guy, having fun with my cars and wanted to race. And I learned the first rule of car racing, that is if you want to make a small fortune, you start with a larger fortune. And I just figured I'd start a business to see if I could modify cars for other people, to see if I could continue to have enough money to go to the next race. And so here we are 33 years later, still doing that. And I guess at a higher scale now, but it's been a lot of fun and looking forward to a lot more fun.
Those of you guys that check out the podcast on YouTube, you can see Goldberg sitting in his garage, and off in the background, he's got the Viper back there. And that's kind of where it all started. Why with the Viper?
I mean, back in the 90s, we had modified other cars, JDM and other American muscle cars. But when the Viper came out, it was kind of a clean sheet of paper, and it was kind of an over-the-top car to begin with. And I thought if it's got 400 or 450 horsepower, if we could give it more, then why not? And there were already guys back then, Lingenfelter and Callaway, that are doing Corvettes. And I don't like being the guy that's just jumping on the bandwagon with everybody else. I like doing something different. So we just figured the Viper would be kind of a cool platform to take an 8-liter V10 and see if we could get more power out of it. And so, yeah, I think in a large way, the Viper is really how we built our name and built our brand back in the 90s and 2000s.
And it was actually an interesting, I don't want to say an interesting transition as much as it, the Hennessey name really, like you said, it became famous for the Viper, but has since grown to anything that you think is cool and fast and can be faster.
Well,
you guys put your hands on.
I think back in the day, when we're working on muscle cars and trucks and SUVs and whatever, back in the day we used to have like this Chinese menu where like most performance shops that are around the country, around the world, whatever rolled in was what we were willing to work on. But what I found in terms of being able to grow and scale our business, doing one-offs is really hard to make any money and hard to scale. So I think we really kind of found that out maybe 10 years ago. We started working on the Raptor. Somebody brought us a Raptor back in 2008 or 2009, and no aftermarket parts existed for it. So I just told my guys, I'm like, well, let's just put a couple turbos on it and put a intercoolers up in the nose, and we threw it on the dyno, and it made like 600 wheel, and on this 5.4 liter Ford V8. And then the guys we put on YouTube, and then the guys from Top Gear USA called us up and said, hey, can we put Tanner Faust in that thing to race some skydiver guy? And I'm like, sure. So I didn't send him that customer truck. I built my own truck and sent it to him. We had like 100 inquiries for these trucks. And so we found like the truck market for us has been just a huge way to grow our business. And so again, we still modify, Hellcats and Demons and Corvettes and Mustangs and things of that nature. But the volume of our business, where our business is really scaled, and now we have right at 100 employees, has been because of trucks and SUVs, and obviously the practicality of that product allows a wider range of people to be able to own those vehicles. And so, Mammoth 1000 on the Ram T-Rex. Bill, I was going to bring we've got a T-Rex that makes 950 to the wheels on E85, and that's what I was actually going to try to bring up to Nashville, but again, I was sick and couldn't make it. But anyway, the T-Rex and the Hemi platform has been a lot of fun for us. But we found for our business to be able to give our employees kind of a future for growth, we needed vehicles that we could scale up. So I think the last 2 years we built just under 600 vehicles each year.
Wow. You think your location being in Houston has anything to do with the truck market?
Yeah, I mean, so really, yeah, I mean, Texas is a great place to live and work. But I think, really 95% of our customers are from outside of Texas. So they're all over the country, all over the world. I mean, Texas is definitely the truck capital of America and the world. So we definitely have that built into our culture. But our customers come from everywhere. And so, again, I just think that maybe the practicality of the truck, you can drive it to work and you can take the kids to school and go to the grocery store. I mean, some guys do off-road them, but I think most people just drive them for fun. But yeah, the trucks and SUVs have really helped us scale our business. And I think, Matt, we were talking at one point recently about our tuner school program. And so again, I couldn't scale our business to where we're building, roughly 50 vehicles a month if we didn't have the talent to do it. So we started a trade school about 15 years ago to teach people how to modify vehicles. And that's where it's kind of our own in-house farm club. So that's how we develop our talent and bring those folks into the operation. And we have 2 classes. We have a basic class where anybody with a passion for automotive and it's got a high school diploma can come and learn the basics. So we've had a lot of students come to the program where they didn't even know how to put air in a tire, but when they leave, they know how to strap a car to a dyno. They know how to bolt on a supercharger. They've been down our drag strip. And then we also have an advanced course that's mainly focused on computer tuning. So that's been kind of a cool thing. And to see what these young guys, young men and women, literally come to us from around the world, where they end up going. We've got one of the senior calibrators on Michael Jordan's NASCAR team is a young man that's a graduate of tuner school. And I could go on and on. There's other talent that's out there, but yeah, those guys leave and they learn something new. And then sometimes they come back to us. So it's kind of a cool way for us to put enthusiastic, dedicated talent out into the marketplace to help other people kind of reach their modification dreams, whether it's a one-off or whether it's volume, kind of like we're doing now.
And I'd say what you accomplish there is like tenfold, because not only do you give a hand up to the kids that we're going to hand this passion down to, but you further solidify the fact that there's still going to be purists out there, right? And purists that can work with their hands. And so there's a lot of great stuff that you've done, but specifically hats off to you for paying it forward.
Hey, brother, anytime if you're passing through, if you got time in between baseball, we'd love to have you come by the factory and see everybody. And if you ever wanted to talk to one of our classes, I know they would be over the moon to have you as a guest speaker if you ever had the time.
I'll take you up on that. Baseball, unfortunately, I'm done with baseball. The boy has gone to University of Colorado 3 weeks ago to play some football.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I won't be going to Tomball anymore. Thank God.
Yeah. Bill
stopped me from going to Houston.
It's a little hot and humid in the summertime for sure during baseball season.
Guys are going to get ready for a lot of rain right now, I would imagine too.
Bill, where's home for you? Are you based in San Antonio?
I'm about 30 minutes, 40 minutes outside of San Antonio in the hill country, Bernie.
Okay, you're Bernie. Okay, awesome. All right, well, I'm out that way. I'll look you up for sure. That'd be great.
How far does tuner school go? Do you focus on, like you were saying, the dyno tuning, the engine tuning, the mechanics, a lot of the assembly, like, because so many of the new car packages that you guys do,
Sure.
new-ish cars, is a lot of assembly and finish work, or do you
Right.
get so far as to into fabrication and painting or metalwork?
Okay, so the one-on-one class basically starts with the basics, and each class has the one-on-one class will have 20 to 25 students. So we have 4 cars. So we'll have a Mustang, a Camaro, and a Hellcat, and I think maybe we're going to add a truck. And so we'll divide the class up into groups, and they'll be assigned a vehicle, and they're actually hands-on modifying that vehicle for the 14 weeks program. And so they'll have they'll spend a week in the fab shop, and they'll get to do some MIG welding. They'll get to do some TIG welding. And we don't have anything for paint, but that's something for the future. They do get into cylinder head work, some block work. They're not really building engines, but again, that's maybe a future class that we may have, is where they'll have actually be doing engine machine work. But we try to expose them to all disciplines for all the things that we started doing back when we were in high school, as far as swapping a cam or changing out, putting a cat back exhaust or an intake. Kind of start with the basics, and then it ends with putting a supercharger system on. And their cars are making 700 to 800 wheel horsepower towards the end of the class. And then they have a competition on the chassis dyno to see who made the most horsepower.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Do they get to go out onto the track? Because you guys, as you were saying, you have a track in the backyard.
We do, and we tell them, look, this is not racing school. I mean, you've got other, Frank Hawley, you've got plenty of other road course driving schools. So we're not a racing school, but early on in the process, when they've done the intake, the exhaust, and the tune, we'll let them go out with a draggy or a V box and look at their 0 to 60 and kind of just give them a little bit of seat time. I mean, it's hard to be there working on these cars and not have some enjoyment with it, but try to give that to them in a controlled environment.
Yeah, I think it's a great program, because we were talking about it a few weeks ago. We were just talking about school programs, and I don't think they get enough, like the vocational programs, the high school programs, the after high school programs don't get enough attention. And it really came up is because we were talking to friends in the industry, other shops, and everyone's hiring and no one can seem to find good people. And it's nice to know that there is some training programs out there. And maybe those shops need to start reaching out more to the schools such as yours, and going, listen, we are hiring when they're ready.
Yeah, we welcome all shops to come in. We'll do a couple job fairs on each semester. We have other shops that are competitors to ours, but we're like, hey, look, it's a big enough market. We stay plenty busy, so we don't have an issue with any other shop coming in and looking at the talent that's coming out of tuner school, and we encourage that. And we really, again, some students may want to come to work for us where we're at, but somebody may want to live in Florida or California or New York and different parts of the country. So we absolutely welcome that. And to your point, I think that's always been, I've always heard that from car dealers. Their biggest challenges is attracting and retaining talent in their service departments. And I think the same thing for in automotive performance is you get old school guys that have been around doing it for the last 30, 40 years. Well, at some point they're going to slow down. At some point they're going to retire, so how do you backfill that talent? And I'm telling you, there is no shortage of younger, passionate, enthusiastic men and women that want to learn kind of some of the old school stuff and some of the new school stuff as far as how to make fast cars and trucks go faster.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more resources. And by the way, something that we're going to offer probably going into next year, we're going to take our program and put it online, because not everybody's got 14 weeks to come to Texas to do a full in-person training program. So I'll come back on the show with you at some point down the road, but we're going to have a kind of an online video on demand program where, again, and then at that point you don't have to be 18 years old. If you've got a son who's 10 or 12 and interested in it, they can get online and learn a lot of our stuff. And then maybe we'll have seminars where you come in for a weekend and you learn how to bolt a supercharger on a Mustang or port a supercharger on a Hellcat.
Yeah. Now, right now, to be at the school in person, there's an 18-year-old minimum because you're there for
Be
some amount of
18, you
time.
got to have
But
your high school diploma or GED, and then really you got to be passionate. I've only had 2 out of maybe 500 students that did pass the program, and they just showed up there because their mom or uncle or somebody thought they should go, but they really weren't in the cars. Everybody else is passed and done
but
well.
there's also no age limit. If you're looking to
No,
shift careers, or maybe you spent some time in the armed forces and you want to learn something new and start a career, like
we've
this is a
had
great
we,
place.
we've had father sons come in. I've had retired bankers. I would say probably 20% of our students are veterans that have come in. We're approved for the GI Bill, so the GI Bill pays for their tuition and a portion of their housing. And again, man, we've modified 16,000 vehicles. We built some pretty cool stuff. We've had, some real characters out there like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith told me that
Mhm.
this Venom GT, that it just made him feel really special. And he felt like when he would go entertain other people doing concerts with Aerosmith, when he came home driving his car, entertain him. But I don't think I ever had a customer of one of my cars tell me that my car changed their life. We've had tuner school students tell us many times that tuner school changed the trajectory of their life in terms of they were going down the wrong path or they didn't know what they wanted to do. And that was me. When I was in my early 20s, I tried college, had to pay for it with my own money, ran on money, thought I wanted to go in the military, didn't end up doing that, ended up being a pool hall bum for 3 or 4 years. And then about 25, I kind of started getting it together and started a business and made some money and started the whole car thing and racing thing. And so again, tuner school is kind of like my story where I was at back when I was in my late teens and 20s. And it kind of gives predominantly young men a place to kind of come and not only learn a skill and find out what their self-discover where their skills may lie, but also become part of a community, become part of a tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, it's a great program. I'm glad you guys are doing it. So thanks for doing that.
No, it's awesome.
I want to talk real quick about the specialty vehicles side of it. You guys are building the turnkey vehicles, and I remember years and years ago you brought the first supercar out that you guys did to the studio out here in California. We drove around in that thing around the neighborhood a little bit, try to lean on it a little bit as much as you can through
Sure.
Glendale,
Yeah,
past like
absolutely.
Disney Studios or something.
Yeah,
But the evolution of that first car to the Venom F5,
sure.
it's
Yeah,
got
so
to
you're
be
talking about
incredible.
the Venom GT. So basically, back in the day, we wanted something very lightweight and powerful. And I thought, okay, what's something that we could modify and give it a bunch of power? And we'd modified Vipers and Corvettes and Mustangs and other things. But then I thought, okay, well, what if we took a Lotus Elise or an Exige and took the four banger out of that and put a twin turbo V8 in it? We did that. So that was the car that we brought out. And the cool thing about the Venom GT, besides the fact that we beat Bugatti in 2014 and went 270 miles per hour, that gave us the confidence to build our own car. So what you're looking at now with the Venom F5, that the idea of that car began in 2013. We actually began on the design and engineering of it in 2017, and we finished the first car during COVID at the end of 2020. And since that time, just delivered our 23rd car to a client recently. And we're built about one car a month. So we build 12 cars a year. It's our own car from the ground up. It's our own chassis. It's our own bodywork. It's our own everything, including the engine, which is based off of a small block Chevy LS architecture, but we do our own block heads, intake, turbo system. And that's a whole separate part of the company. It's actually its own separate company. We have our own separate team. We have our own design team. One cool guy that we brought on board to that team about a year ago is a gentleman named Brian Jones. Brian is our VP of engineering, and before coming to us, Brian was the chief engineer for the AMG 1 and previous to that, the 4GT. And so this isn't
Nice.
just about, again, the F5 is a really cool car. It's got ridiculous power to weight ratio. It's a car that was designed with the intention of breaking 300 miles per hour, and we're still working very diligently on that. I think at this point, the challenge that we're working on is where's the best place where we can find a good 4 to 5 miles, maybe 6 miles to accelerate the car to those speeds. But it's something we're very proud about. Again, it's designed, engineered, and built in Texas here in America. And again, we're kind of up against the other great companies predominantly from Europe, whether it's McLaren, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Koenigsegg, Aston Martin. I mean, there's some amazing hypercars that are out there, but we're really the only production series hypercar that's built in America, and it's something that we take not only seriously and take a lot of joy in, but we really feel Fury. There's Fury. By the way, I'll give you a quick if you want to ask me where the name came from.
Yeah, that's a good question for the car.
So when we introduced the car and we branded the engine Fury, nobody in the media ever asked us, where'd you come up with that name? So back when we were doing development work on the engine, this is 3 or 4 years ago, I was watching that movie with Brad Pitt where you got those guys in World War II, these scrappy little tankers. These Americans are in this tank, and they decided their Alamo was over there in Germany, and they're taking on like these hundreds of Germans coming at them, and there's these 3, 4, 5 guys just fighting them off with every bit of scrap that they had. I'm like, that's us. We're
that
these
Inglorious Bastards.
What's that?
Inglorious Bastards. That was the name.
Well, it was Fury with it was the other.
I think Fury was
movie.
the other movie.
Fury was the
Fury.
other movie with Brad Pitt, but they're in this tank and they come across this big battalion of Germans, and they just decided rather than run, they were going to take them on, and that's kind of how we feel like. That's how we feel like we're this little American underdog with scrappiness and grit and determination and a lot of talent, and we're trying to beat companies like Bugatti, which is part of Porsche, Rimaac's Volkswagen group, that have all these resources that we don't have. We're trying to beat those guys. So anyway, that's just kind of where the name came from for our engine for the Venom F5.
And it seems completely different. Like, it seems like there would be a lot of similarities between the Hennessey performance side and modifying the vehicles, like you said, 16,000 vehicles now, but starting a car company, and just first of all, the amount of funding, and then from a clean sheet of paper to going, how do we design a chassis? How do we do a monocoque? How do we do carbon fiber development? And then once you design it, going, how do we make it? How do we find suppliers? Is any of this shit possible? It's honestly, seems like a lot.
It's worthy of a Netflix series. I mean, we don't have enough time today for me to tell you the full story, but I can tell you this. The Venom F5 is a total God story. That car would not exist if it wasn't for God, because there's nothing that look, I may have a few skills or talents or resources, but I don't have nearly what it took to build that car. And I'm telling you, I'll give you one snippet of that car. I'll give you one out of 20 stories on why that car should have never existed. When before we built the first car, we built the design model. So you probably saw it years past. It was bright yellow. We had it at the SEMA show. We unveiled it with the people at Shell Pennzoil. And so before I was going to spend the time and money to engineer the car, I had a couple of soft orders, but I really had to know that there was a demand for this car. So our partners at Shell Pennzoil gave us a budget to do the exterior design, and with that, we were able to build a full one-to-one model. It looks like a real car. It's yellow, didn't have an interior, didn't have an engine, but it had real wheels and tires, it had headlights and taillights. It looked like a real car. So we go to SEMA show in November of 2017 to unveil that car, and 2 days before we went there, we just finished the model. The paint was literally still wet. I had not seen the full design model altogether, but we took it to a photo studio in Long Beach and rolled it up on this rotating stage so the photographer can spin the car and take all the photos. And as the car came together and the splitter went on it, I'm like, man, this car looks amazing. The photographer's getting ready, and they've got this huge light box. I mean, a light box, it's like 30 feet long and 20 feet wide. And this thing is suspended from the ceiling on a big cable. And it requires so much electricity to power that light box for the photo shoot that they don't even use grid power. They have this ginormous generator outside the building, and they fire up the generator and they power up the light box. And above the light box, some of the wires, there's electrical fire. Oh. And I'm like, I've been looking at my finished design model that cost about $1 million. Okay. And I got to see it for about 5 minutes. And now here's this electrical fire going on above the light box. That whole light box is going to get engulfed in flames, and it's going to crash down on my design model and burn that thing to the ground. And nobody's ever seen it. It's not going to the SEMA show, which, by the way, when we unveiled at the SEMA show over the next 6 weeks, that resulted in 6 orders, which then gave me critical mass to move forward with the budget for engineering.
Yeah.
That's That's 1 out of 20 stories I could tell you on why that car should not exist today.
I'm glad your model didn't burn to the ground
Yeah.
underneath
Yeah,
a
me
flaming
too.
light box.
So thankfully they turned the power off, the fire went away, they were able to fix the electrical, and the photo shoot went down. And again, kind of the rest is history. But like there's so many examples like that. Again, you hit on so many points as far as suppliers and people ask me a question I have gotten a lot about the F5. What was the biggest challenge? And my answer is always getting people to believe, getting my wife to believe, getting my family to believe, getting my employees to believe, getting my bankers to believe, getting customers to believe. Once people started to believe it, and once we started having little successes, and we could show our engine on the dyno making power, and we could show the design model, and then we could go from the design model to CAD and CATIA, and then we could go from that to I'll tell you another story. So during COVID, I've got chassis number 1 in England. The whole world is shut down. At the time, England would allow people into the UK, but you had to self-quarantine for 10 days. So I brought a team over to England during COVID. We rented our own little house on VRBO, and we would go over to the shop where we're doing some of the engineering work. We had an engine in the car, but nobody could be around us. We had to stay to ourselves the whole time we're there. But we got it running. Again, so we got engine running in the car, in the chassis, another little victory, and it just took those little victories. But initially my wife's like, you want to do what? Okay, you've been modifying cars. You're really good at that. You've made some money at that, but like becoming an actual manufacturer, that's like, okay, do you want to be a brain surgeon next? Do you want to go back to med school for the next 12 years? So it was a big undertaking, and knowing what I know now, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that again. It was just at times, I was all in. I mean, like every dollar I was making off of modifying Raptors back in those days was going into the big pot on the big table for the F5. And if it failed, I'd have a freaking big ass hole. I'd have nothing in my bank account to run or grow my business. It paid off and it worked out, but it was risky business at the highest level for me personally.
The challenge on the business side is what I'm always so impressed with. I had no doubt that you could build something like this from your experience and your knowledge, but we just get so much pushback and restriction from rules and regulations and laws and stuff. And honestly, I give, as Bill and I both, as fans and enthusiasts of this entire industry, from the motorsports side to the street cars and all the high performance stuff and everything we go see at Monterey Car Week and the Quail. It's like, it's amazing that there still is a drive and a passion and innovation for all of this when there's so much pushback from the outside world that doesn't really understand it. You're talking about building a car company for the Venom F5, and we're still seeing young companies pop up like Zinger or whatever, and I'm like, it's really, really smart stuff, and they're 3D printing and all this stuff, and I was just like, why did you even try to do this? Like, this is a brand new company. Like, why even try to do it? Because you're going to get so much pushback from people going, we don't want you to do it. But I love the drive and the innovation from this industry.
And justifies the means, right?
Yeah. And now again, we started with, again, in our business now, we have about 25 people full-time on the F5 program. And then the other 75 work in tuner school and the modification business. But like, I look at every one of those employees like every day, like the future of that business really relies on the decisions that we make. And again, at this point, it's not just about the F5. We already have 2 other cars planned after F5. The next car is actually, we're pretty far along in the design process. It'll be internal combustion, 100%, no hybrid, no electric. And look, that's something that we've been hearing from our customers and our dealers for the beginning. And for a while there, I'm thinking, well, God, 2-3 years ago, I'm thinking, well, man, if the industry's all going electric, then what are we going to do? We need to pay attention to that. But I did an interview with Top Gear, with Gordon Murray and Monte Remots and Christian Koenigsegg about a year and a half ago over in London. And they were all on that, sipping that Kool-Aid and on that bandwagon. And I just basically try to say it in a polite way. I should have probably been just more direct and just been a straight up dick and just said, look, that ain't flying. People aren't buying those cars. Now, I owned a Tesla.
We are now.
Well, look, I owned a Tesla. I owned a Tesla Plaid for a couple of years, and look, there's a lot of things I like about electric, but I think ultimately the free market is the free market, at least in America. You know, the government and the big car companies can't just cram down our throats and say, hey, here's what you're going to buy. Guess what? We'll say, guess what? I'll keep my old car. We'll be like Cuba. You know, we'll be driving around our cars that are 50 years
Yeah.
old. You know,
taking sort of the politics out of the equation.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to reach the performance benchmarks that you want to reach and beat some of those competitors that you talked about without doing anything sort of hybrid? Because, you know, them
Absolutely.
doing gas engines with electric motors now step to all-wheel drive and 0 to 60 times drop and turbo lag gets filled in.
I'll give you a quick answer. It depends on what discipline we're talking about. If we're talking about, let's go set a lap time at Willow Springs, Circuit of the Americas, Laguna Seca, Nürburgring, Nordschleife. Venom F5 Revolution just a couple months ago, 3 months ago, set the production series lap record on a production series street tire at COTA. We went a 210.9 around COTA. I think the NASCAR guys on slicks were running in the same, maybe 211 or something like that. Hey, Mate, bring your remotes over there and see how you do. You know, bring a hybrid out there and see how it does. So again, there's one example. Look, in drag racing, and Bill, you know this. I mean, the electric cars are hard to beat in a drag race. I mean, all-wheel drive with that instant torque from electric. I mean, my Plaid, that thing would run solid 9s all day long, and I never really even ran it down the drag strip. It was honestly just kind of boring. So again, I think that even though the electric cars have the speed capability in a straight line, they don't really stop and they don't really turn all that well. Now, Porsche may be doing something about that, but I don't see, I mean, the physics is physics. When you've got a 5,000-pound car, it's only going to stop and turn so much. You know, at some point they're going to run out of battery juice. I mean, recently, I think the guys from Lotus took some race car tuned up electric car, the Avaya, and they ran a fast lap time around the Nürburgring. But again, if it's a straight up race car, then it's like, okay, that's what race cars are supposed to do. So again, I have nothing against hybrids or EV cars, but the reality is physics are physics. And until the batteries get smaller and lighter, they're just going to be big, heavy boat anchors, you know, so they're fast.
Yeah.
And they can be comfortable and they're quiet. I mean, from loud cars and guns over the years, I got 20% hearing loss in my right ear. When I was driving my Tesla around, I could be on the phone and I could hear. Okay, great. If I'm driving the F5, it makes a little bit more noise. But look, at the end of the day, internal combustion delivers all the sensory inputs, sound, vibration, smell. And I think those sensory inputs are what make us feel special and feel alive. The electric vehicles, to me, they perform a job. My washing machine performs a job. My dishwasher performs a job. My Tesla got me where I wanted to go quietly, safely, quickly. But I never really drove it for enjoyment. I just drove it to get where I needed to go.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Like, first of all, it's yours. You get to build what you want. And if you have a handful of customers that are willing to support that and share that enthusiasm for that experience, then by all means, that's what you really need. If you have the passion for it and you have a customer or a handful of customers that want it, that's the foundation of all of this.
Sure. And look, I could go on and on. I mean, there's one of the things I like about EV, there's two big things I really liked about it. I don't like going to the gas station because it always seems like I got to be somewhere when I got to go to the gas station. And especially if my kids are driving the car, they're going to leave it. It's going to be empty in the driveway in my garage. And when I get in, it's below E. So I'm like, the first thing I got to do is go to the gas station. So I like the EV, like I just plug it in and drive the crap out of it and then plug it in at night. The second thing that I really liked about it, I don't know if I've heard anybody else really talk about this. I really like the precise control of the throttle. And I like basically that I can use regen for my braking. So just around town, it's easy to drive around and I'm not constantly riding the brakes or whatever. But really kind of outside of those things, I'm like, man, the internal combustion, like I got rid of my Plaid recently and my wife very kindly let me start daily driving her Audi RS6 Avant. So I've got an 800 horsepower station wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about the Plaid, I would drive it to the office and I would drive pretty quickly. I won't say exactly how fast, but I would drive quickly. But at a certain speed, I didn't feel once you get above 90, 95 miles per hour, the regen doesn't really work on the car. And I was really never comfortable going much over 100 miles. And 105 was about as fast as I'd want to go in that thing because I didn't know if I could stop it. Well, at least like in the R6 Avant, that thing's got monsters carbon ceramic brakes with Brembos up front, and I can go faster and have the confidence to be able to stop safely.
Yeah.
So again, I could go back and forth of the pros and cons again. Hey, look, I think that the automotive enthusiasts out there, if they're into electric and that's their right of choice, God bless them. I'm all for them.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad to see that finally the executives and the product planners and the boards of directors at these big car companies, ultimately they have to account to their customers, and they have to account to their shareholders. And if the market says we're only going to buy it at a certain rate, then supply the product if it makes sense. But if you're spending billions and billions of dollars every year and you're only selling this many cars, and your shareholders and your other, like, really, like, here's the thing, I kind of feel like that some of the internal combustion cars now are not as good as they were 5 years ago, because guess what? A lot of the engineering and talented resources at these companies, they've been putting all into EV. And now their bread and butter, the stuff they really make money with, is suffering because of it, from a quality standpoint and from a product development standpoint. Now they can catch up on that, but I stand by what I just said.
Yeah.
But there are manufacturers out there who haven't taken a misstep, and behind the scenes, they've continued to concentrate on what we care about, which is nice to see.
Well, that's true. And again, within every company, and we know these guys, they've been champions for, they've been saying, hey, don't ignore ICE. But again, for other reasons, the executives, whether it's political or just basically betting on the future, or FOMO, their fear of becoming the buggy whip manufacturer from 1890, right? So again, I'm not gonna Monday morning quarterback why they decided, but thankfully they've heard the market, and now they're like, hey, look, we should continue with our plans for internal combustion, and so maybe there's a chance that GM brings back the Camaro at some point, And maybe there's a chance that
as a gas engine vehicle,
put a Hellcat engine in the new Charger. Who knows? Thankfully Ford is still producing, V8 powered Mustangs, and plans to do that for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
So.
As long as they can, as long as they can. I mean, that's the plan. That's, Ford and Jim Farley's plan. And I'm actually, that's an example where it is nice to see that a guy like Jim Farley is getting support from, the bosses, because everyone has a boss, right?
Well, Bill Ford is as much of a champion of the Mustang and performance as Jim,
Yeah.
and basically he's let Jim, Jim's an outside the box thinker. So when you see Mustang GTD, that's just like, I mean, I was in Jim's office 10 years ago, and he told me his vision for a Mustang that would be like a GT3 RS Porsche. I sat in his office and he told me. And then when GTD came out about a year ago, I texted him some point after that. I said, Jim, I remember you telling me about that. I'm like, when the GT350 and the 350R came out, I'm like, that's closer to like, GT3, but not quite there. But GTD is like totally like that. And he's like, yeah, it took me longer than I expected. I said, well, welcome to the club, dude. It took me longer than I expected for everything. Anything good or important that I ever did always took longer and cost a lot more money,
I'm sure you have to be looking forward to getting your hands on one of those cars just to.
I applied. I mean, hopefully we'll see what happens. I think they have, I don't know how many cars they're going to build, but I heard they had 7,500 applicants for North America.
Yeah. So 7,500 applicants for the first 2 years of production. And I think they were going to do about, I don't know if it was 1,500 or 2,500 each year. But they're trying to do, I think the plan is to do a 4-year one like they did with the Ford GT. But the first 2 years, it's done. All the applicants are in. And then it'll be another year or so before they open the process available, again, to for the second 2 years. And in like the Ford GT, maybe there's something a little different. Maybe there's a special edition. Maybe, I mean, they just podiumed at Le Mans, so they go back next year.
Yeah, they just showed a carbon series over at Le Mans. I'm sure kind of like the similar, probably a similar product plan like they did on the Ford GT, like you said. So hey, look, the fact that they're willing to do that, and again, I mean, look at GM. I mean, they got the ZR1 coming out from Chevy, then the Zora after that. Again, it's nice that there's still some nice choices for the car guys out there, and and hopefully there's more to come. Maybe cars like maybe there'll be a Gen 7 Camaro at some point that's not electric or not a hybrid or not a
Yeah.
four-door, but it's still enthusiast based. So, and same thing for the Stellantis guys. I have a strong feeling that they designed the new Charger where that could accept a Hellcat V8 at some point, and who knows, maybe we'll give that a go. Bill, maybe that'd be a little side project we can do with Tim at some point. So
Yeah.
I'm in.
All right. So we're gonna wrap things up, but we're gonna see where we're gonna see you up in Monterey next, right?
Bill, yeah, come see us in August, and Bill, I'll come look you up in Bernie, and you're always welcome to come by and visit us over in Sealy. Great to have that Texas connection.
100%. I will do.
John, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. Guys, you can check out Hennessey at all the various websites. There's HennessyPerformance.com, there's tunerschool.com, and the Hennessey Special Vehicles.com as well, and get a more of an inside look at everything that we've been going over here today. But always a pleasure, John. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Thanks for being on, John. Appreciate it.
See you soon. Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Until next time, keep the air and the spare in the bag and the wheel.